do that. I know it's Shabbat. I didn't know I can't cook on Shabbat. I didn't know I can't heat a bottle, a tea kettle of water on Shabbat. So he didn't know. Not knowing is not an excuse, right? Because the question is, why didn't you know? Why didn't you learn? Why didn't you educate yourself, right? But the court's not going to punish a guy for not knowing, right? Correct. So the court's not going to punish him, but he's going to be he's going to need to go to bring a sin offering to the Beit Hamikdash for violating one of the 39 malachot of Shabbat, one of the 39 main types of work on Shabbat. And one of the things on Shabbat that you can't do on Shabbat, you're not allowed to make a fire on Shabbat. That is one of the 39 malachot on Shabbat. Then there's another thing you can't do on Shabbat. You can't take out a fire. If a person goes in and takes out a fire on Shabbat, that's a violation of the Shabbat. Now, the question is, which type of situation, which type of scenario, by taking out a fire on Shabbat, would be in violation of Shabbat? Meaning, what do you mean, Rabbi? You just said to take out a fire. It's one of the things you can't do on Shabbat. But there is an argument in the Mishnah that there is an opinion that says the only time it's a violation of the Shabbat is if that a Torah violation, meaning to say, there's no question about it. Rabbinically, everybody would agree. At least rabbinically, it's forbidden to take out a fire on Shabbat. But sometimes there, at certain situations, it would be a biblical violation. And certain situations, you could do the same act of taking out the fire, that there might be an argument among rabbis if that act would be a Torah violation. What's the issue? Making a fire, right? But
now, where do I learn the mikra that I cannot prove out?
Right. So it's very good. So because just like there's in the 39 malachot of Shabbat, there are very few of them that are actually written in the verse itself, the exact act of the work. One of them is like he said is making a fire. However, most of them are not written in the pasuk. The same way writing a letter is not written in the pasuk. Building is not written in the pasuk. These are all malachot on Shabbat. So too, extinguishing is not written in the pasuk, but it was something that they did in the Mishkan. The source, how do we know that you can't extinguish on Shabbat? How do we know it's a malacha? Because when they built the tabernacle, right, and they used fire, they would make fire fire was used in the Mishkan, and also they used fire to go ahead and they extinguished the fire. If they wanted to make coals, if they wanted to make coals in the Mishkan, they had to go ahead. Good morning, Simon. Welcome back again, Simon. They would have to extinguish the wood to make the coals. Good morning, Adam. So that is the act of extinguishing. How do we know that extinguishing is a malacha? Is because that was something that they did in the Mishkan. That's how.
Because the other malacha that says in all of the Torah is that they turn on the fire, so all of the other malachas they learn from
the Mishkan.
So the question of doing the Damurai would be like, for sure I learned Mikra, for sure I learned one malacha from Mikra, but I can argue that all the door of the Melacha can be the right on the Rana because I don't learn it straight from.
No. So everybody agrees the other Melachot are Daraita. Meaning, there's no question. There's 39 Melachot. There are 39 acts that on most of them, 30 plus, are not written openly in the Torah, but they're all biblical. They're all Melacha. Meaning, writing on Shabbat. Now let it write on Shabbat. Erasing on Shabbat. Building on Shabbat. They're all Daraita. Demolition. These are all cooking. The act of cooking something without making a fire. Just merely fire's already there. Cooking on Shabbat, doing the act of cooking on Shabbat, carrying on Shabbat, right? Okay, carrying on Shabbat. These are all these malachot are daraita. But the major question is, do you have to, what type of purpose do you need to do to have intending? What's the intention? What are you doing? What are you trying to, are you trying to create something as a result of your act? Or even if you don't create something, it also would be a violation. Let me give you an example. When you take out a fire on Shabbat, right, Adam? Someone goes ahead Friday night, they have their candles lit, and they say, I want to go to sleep, but my candles are lit. And he says, I'm nervous. You can't take out the fire, so stay up, wait till the candles go out. Or set your candles up in a way with a nice metal underneath that even if a candle will fall, you'll be fine, right? Or figure out what to do in the beginning to make sure that you won't feel concerned. Use a tea light or whatever it might be right. But if a person says Friday night, I want to take, but a person says he wants to take out the fire of the candles Friday night, he's not allowed to. Now, is he violating the Torah if he takes out that fire Friday night? Now, what do you mean, Rabbi? You told me extinguishing is one of the malachot. Extinguishing is one of the malachot. Is one of the acts that's forbidden. But there's an opinion in the Gemara, in the Mishnah. There's an opinion in the Gemara that only if I take out the fire for a constructive purpose, I want the extinguishing to do something. The same way when you make a fire, I need the fire. The making of a fire is creating something that's purposeful. I build something. There's a creative design. I need the building. I need the building. The building is something that's needed to affect something. When I take out a fire, because I just don't want the fire on. I am not creating something. I am not designing something. I'm not making something. The removal of the fire is not improving something. It's not making something. So the act, the productive, what was my productive act? I just prevented, let's say I prevented the fire from being on. Let's say I like to use the other example. I wanted to spare the oil. You know what? I want to have oil for next week. So I go ahead and I take out the fire. So that taking out the fire is not, did I produce something? When I build something, when I make a fire, there was a productive act that I needed the act. I needed that act in order to create what I wanted to create. But when I go ahead and I take out a fire for the purpose of saving the oil, it's not, I only prevented something from burning, but I didn't construct something. Did everyone hear that idea? Adam, is it clear or not clear? Yeah, so it's not a simple idea. There's something called, I'm going to give the other side of the coin. Right, Simon? I have a new wick, right? So a new wick, if I go ahead and I light a new wick and then I extinguish the new wick, the extinguishing of a new wick will now make the wick a better wick. I mentioned yesterday, I was once in a house of somebody, and on Friday before Shabbat, he would light the candle, and husband was married. We know if a person's single, they have to, and there's no, if a man's living alone, he has to light candles for Shabbat. But he was married. Even though he was married, good morning, Sonny, good morning, Murray. He was married. He would go every Friday before Shabbat. He would light the candles before Shabbat and blow it out. And then his wife would light the candles. What was he doing? Sonny, if you don't mind moving a little bit to this, I can see the man back here. Thank you so much. Because beautiful. So he wanted He was light because he wanted to do something to help the Shabbat candles. He wanted to do something to help the preparation of Shabbat. And if you light a new wick and then you blow it out, that wick is now a better wick. Why? Because that wick is easier to catch fire the next time. How do you like that, Adam?
And so he's preparing it's almost like putting the candles in.
Exactly. It's similar to putting the candles in, but he did another level. He put the let's say he actually lit it. Maybe he let his wife put the candles in, leave it to the wife to make sure everything's under control to put the candles in. But he let his wife put the candles, but he lit it, he blew it right out. Now the wick is easy to light.
So the question is, in Shabbat, the melacha itself, it's the right. So I don't care what it's gonna be constructive or not constructive. So why would there be a feeling saying that, maybe I need construction glory?
Very good, very good.
It is the right.
Very good. Very good. The answer is, what is the Torah says lachshov machshava. The Torah, there's something called melechet machshevet. That even though it's not all about the bottom line, right? It's not about the net. It's not about just by Shabbat. It's not about the act that you did. It's the intention that makes a big difference. So if I go ahead and I do an act, I extinguish the fire. For one case, I extinguished the fire for a creative design. I had an intention to do something, to create something. So one opinion says, because I'm going to give you a different example. Remind me your full name. Abraham. Forgive me. Abraham. Let's say I go ahead, I'm going to give it, one of the third nine malachot on Shabbat is demolition. Well, let's talk about a different malacha, erasing on Shabbat. If someone writes something, by the way, erasing has been around for all the years. Writing has been around, erasing. If you erase something on Shabbat, you erase, right? Sonny wrote something and someone else comes and erases it. They didn't know, I can't erase it. It's a violation of Shabbat. Erasing is a violation. But when is erasing a violation of Shabbat? Only if you erase with the intention to rewrite. But if you erase, the bottom line, net, there was a net, you erase something. But you erase not to rewrite. Well, what did you intend? I just want to erase it. I want to erase everything that person wrote. I'm erasing. Adam wrote a nice letter, and I want to erase that letter. That letter, he wrote a letter to his father, and I erased that letter. That's a destructive act. So then nobody would say I'm a violation of the Torah on a Torah level, because not only it didn't create a creative design, so to speak, and at that level, I actually did the act of that's called an act of destruction. For Shabbat, if you do an act of destruction, that's not a violation, a Torah violation of Shabbat. It's rabbinically you can't break things on Shabbat. If I go ahead and I break a chair on Shabbat, I didn't do a Torah violation. I didn't accomplish anything. I destroyed. Even if it's on purpose. I went in, I erased. So you have two people. One guy erased, like David said, the intention. He erased because he plans on rewriting in the same spot. And the other guy erased, not because he's planning on writing, he wants to erase just to erase. So the one that will be in violation is the one who erased with the intention of rewriting. So it's not, but the one who erased just to erase, that's a destructive act. So here you have a situation that both people did the same act of erasing. But one is in Torah violation and one is not in Torah violation. Sonny, am I clear? That the intention of it's not about, in America, they talk about, it's all about the bottom line. Right, David? Is that what a lot of America talks about in the business world? Bottom line. We're not about just the bottom line. We want to know what's the intention when Shabbat. So that is I want to see over here.
Not the, the, it does it. If I have an intention, דבר שמתכוון, היה. אבל אם הוא אומר דבר שלא מתכוון, פטור. But now, again, there is a חילוק between אם רואים דבר שמתכוון לקלקל או דבר שמתכוון לבנות. So a construction or only construction. One of those דבר שמות divided in two. אני לא מתכוון to construct, אני לא מתכוון to destroy. Yeah? So you have like four חילוקים מהנטל. But what is deep, like saying like, אם אני חושב, like, if I go to the שיטה לצי, לכולי עלמא אומרים, if your intention is to לבנות, so
right. If your intention, you're doing the same. Again, we said demolition and erasing have the same laws, right? In this aspect, because demolition in itself is a destructive act. But if you do demolition for the purpose of what? Building, then it's a constructive act. That same act of demolition, Simon, with your intention will be, one guy will be a violation of the Shabbat, not Torah level, and one is not. Because this one broke down the building because he wants to rebuild. And this guy broke down, he was doing a riot. He was rioting and he broke down a building. Okay, so so Avram's getting into another point. I want to maybe
I didn't have intention to connect. But now that it's destroyed, can I?
Okay. Avram, you're getting into another act. You're getting into what we call Moni Levi, Davar she'ein meschaveh. So here we're not getting this. Our Gemara is not yet discussing that. That's another discussion, Avraham. There's two different discussions. There's something called Malacha she'tzricha legufa, Malacha she'ein tzricha legufa. An act that, do I need it? Do I need that act for itself? Or I need the act because I want it for some other purpose? Do I need the extinguishing? What's called an extinguishing for itself is when I extinguish for the purpose of making the wick a better wick. So therefore, that's called extinguishing an act. The act is extinguishing. That's the malacha for itself because I need it. I need it to make this wick a better wick. But if I extinguish it because I want to spare the oil, so that act is not really needed for itself. It's not improving something. Adam, I know you wanted me to focus in on this. There's the Gemara now, but Avraham, yours is a different discussion. There's an Aruch HaShulchan. Maybe I want to show you after the shir, Avraham. I want to show you the Aruch HaShulchan. He gets into what you're discussing, but just Adam, I want to address your point, what you were asking. Two people. One guy had a lamp and he took out the fire because he wanted to spare the oil. One guy took out the fire because he wanted to make the wick a good wick. So one guy is being very creative. Who's the creative man here? Right? You have the case, David? Everybody with me, Simon? Adam, I got two people. Asaf, good morning. I got two people here. One guy took out the fire to make a wick, a better wick. He's a creative person. I think the Art Scroll in its English, I think they wrote a nice little in its note. I think one who extinguishes to spare the lamp or the oil is, he says, if you look at note number 21, note number 21, got it? On page 31b2. You got it? One who extinguishes to spare the lamp or oil, so he did an act, right? What was the act? He extinguished. That's one of the acts. Performs a labor but it's not needed for its defined purpose. Now, he needs to explain this. Simon, you got a 31B2 number, note number 21. That's why we need the bracket. See the brackets on that, Adam? You with me or not? Note number 21, 31. He does not achieve a higher order of design through his act. You got that? Adam, I want you to see this. He does not, David, you see this? He does not achieve a higher order of design through his act. He merely rectifies an undesirable situation. The consumption of the oil by the flame. That's all he's doing. He saved oil by getting out the fire. Meaning his intention was only to save oil. Not to improve the wick, not to make the wick a better wick. He didn't build any. He wasn't constructive. He prevented a destruction, let's say. To save the wick. The Gemara's going to talk about that also, right? To save the wick. Not defined purpose. If you're just saving a wick, that's not for defined purpose. It's for some ulterior motive. A guy goes ahead and has dirt on the ground. And he goes ahead, one of the 39 malachot on Shabbat, you're not allowed to plow on Shabbat. You're not allowed to plow on Shabbat. You can't take your, and plowing, including plowing, you go ahead. Let's say you have like when you chop ice. What do you call it? Like a picker or whatever it is. What do you call it? The smasher. So if a guy goes in, he takes on Shabbat, he takes the smasher to smash the ground to loosen up the soil. That's plowing, right? Because you're doing the same effect. What's plowing? You break the ground, you break the soil, so now you can easily plant something, right? That's plowing. So the guy goes ahead and he takes the smasher, but because he wants to go ahead and soften the ground. He's taking the smasher because he wants the dirt to use the dirt to cover. He's slaughtering a bird, and the Torah says when you slaughter a bird, you have to cover the blood on the bottom and on top. Good morning, with dirt. You don't leave the blood uncovered. Right? If someone slaughters a bird, right? You're slaughtering a kosher bird or a kosher wild animal, a deer. You have to prepare dirt because you have to cover the blood. The guy goes ahead and he breaks the ground, but he breaks the ground not because he wants to for the purpose of plowing, which is the constructive purpose. He breaks the ground. He wants the dirt. He wants the dirt. Morning, Ronnie. Good to see you. He wants the dirt to cover the blood, the blood of the animal that he just slaughtered. So the act that he's doing is not for and let's say maybe most probably the case is, and let's say it's not for constructive. It's not his act is for some ulterior motive, right? So then that's not called. And let's say you have to say most probably he doesn't need the ground to be plowed. Let's say, presumably you have to say that's the case. He doesn't need the ground to be plowed. It's not necessary for that ground to be plowed. So he's doing it, but he's doing an act, but it's not for the purpose of plowing. It's not making a difference. Let's say we have to see. I'm just using this as an example. I'm not sure. We have to see if this is the right example or not. But the idea is that I'm not doing it for a constructive purpose. I'm doing this act of softening the ground, but for some ulterior point. So I'm saying, according to one opinion, let's say, based on this, even though I did the act, but since it's not for its design to create it for the purpose of improving, making the ground a better ground, let's say that. We have to look up halachically if this is a good example, but I just want to use it as a concept that's for some other purpose. It's not for the purpose, for a creative purpose. Because have the dirt without the ground being broken, I would be happy without having the ground being broken. It's not like I need the ground to be broken because I need the ground to be broken because I want to plant there. I don't need that. I'm not interested in planting in that ground. I'm not creating something that the act is not for a creative idea. It's not because I'm not planning on, let's say, planting over there. So that act is not being constructive for helping me in a way, in a constructive way, but I'm only interested because I just want the dirt. So that's what the Gemara is saying over here. So that's what the Gemara says. This concept is the argument between two rabbis. And now the Gemara wants to understand, meaning if I do an act, I did the act of the malacha. I did, let's say, I extinguished the fire, right? Extinguishing a fire, we said, is one of the 39 malachot. But there was no creative design that happened as a result of this. Or do we say that the fact that it serves a purpose, I spared the oil, that's enough of a creative design. That I am a violation of the Shabbat. Or not. That mean again, I want to be clear. Everyone agrees you can't do it on Shabbat. You can't take out the fire. It's Friday night. I don't want the candles to burn up while I'm going to sleep. I can't take out the fire. Stay up, wait till the fire goes out. Lamar, as I said before, people should set up in a way that they're not going to be concerned, right? They won't have a problem. Set up before Shabbat a way that it's safe that you can go to sleep with it. So that is the. So now let's see the Gemara. With that backdrop, we have the Gemara on 31b, 31b2. Kechos alaner, the top of the page on the right column. Rabbi Yossi Kaman Svirale. Who does Rabbi Yossi hold like? Because Rabbi Yossi went on record. He says, listen, Rabbi Yossi says, if you take out a fire because you want to spare the oil, there's no Torah violation because you're not creating anything by taking out the fire. You're just preventing something. You're preventing the oil from burning. I'm not creating something. So the Gemara says, but then the Gemara says, if he doesn't hold like, the Gemara now says he doesn't hold like, the first approach is going to be, at least at this point, he sounds like he doesn't hold like Rabbi Yehuda. Because according to Rabbi Yehuda, even if you don't have that, even if it's not for that purpose, even if you're not improving something, you're not making it better, Rabbi Yehuda says you still will be in violation, right? Because malacha she'ena tzricha legufa is chayav. Right, you intended to do right, good. Now, so the Gemara says, if Rabbi Yehuda, if he holds like Rabbi Yehuda, even if you're sparing the oil, you should also be in violation because you did the act of extinguishing a fire, even though it's not that creative purpose. Rabbi Yehuda says, as long as you extinguished the fire and it wasn't destructive, and you had a reason why you took out the fire, you want to spare the oil, that's enough. You met the bar that you're a violation of you violate Shabbat by extinguishing the fire. Rabbi Shimon hold, but if you hold like Rabbi Shimon, that if you didn't have a constructive gain out of it, you didn't improve something, so then I feel even by the case of the wick, because Rabbi Yossi says, by the way, if you take out a fire, if you took out the fire if you extinguish for the purpose of saving the oil, you're not in violation. But if you extinguish for the purpose of saving the wick, you are in violation. So Gemara says, what's the difference between the wick? If you hold like you have to be for a constructive purpose. So if you take out to spare the wick, you also didn't. What's the difference between spare the oil and spare the wick? You didn't build anything. You didn't make anything better. You didn't improve anything just to spare the wick. You're just sparing the wick. I want to save the wick. So if you want to save the wick, but what was that productive you know, you didn't improve the wick if you're just saving the wick. Right. That's the Gemara's question. Ama Ula said, "Don't Rabbi Yehuda really. Rabbi Yehuda really holds like Rabbi Yehuda. Really, the Gemara said like Rabbi Yehuda, like Abraham was saying. That what if you hold like Rabbi Yehuda, therefore, even if you do the act, even though as long as the act wasn't to destroy something with a destructive purpose, I did the act. I had some sort of purpose, but the purpose wasn't to make something better, improve the item, but it wasn't that I needed to have that act done to create something. Yet I would be in violation because I did the act. Let's say if I would take out a fire for the purpose of, but the unique thing here is there's something different about this case, because taking out a fire is like demolition, is breaking something. And when you break something, you have to rebuild in its place. And when you go ahead, the Ksav you'll see, soter amanat livnot v'kom have soter. When you, if you do demolition somewhere, it has to be with the intention of rebuilding in that same place. If someone would knock down a building because he wants to take the materials to rebuild somewhere else and build a building somewhere else, but he didn't knock down the building with the intention of rebuilding a new building in its place. Guy knocked down a house, he wants to build in another lot, the next lot, but not in this lot. So that act we look at as an act of destruction. At least this opinion holds. Even though you had a purpose why you wanted the materials, but this demolition, you're not making this place a better place, because you're not rebuilding in this lot. You broke down the lot right here to rebuild in another lot. So that is he holds that's called a destruct. Regarding this lot, this was a destructive act. So that type of demolition will not be in violation of the Shabbat on a Torah level. Interesting, Morris. The guy demolishes a building, demolishes a house, and he plans on leaving this lot empty. So this opinion says that's not the Torah's case of a violation of Shabbat. Only if you destroy the building to rebuild in this place. The same way a guy goes ahead and if you have a letter, you wrote a letter, and you erase this letter because you plan on rewriting somewhere else on the letter. But I don't plan on rewriting in this place. So then we say we look at this act as a destructive act. I would say, right? Correct? So that's what he wants to say. And he says, and therefore, if you go ahead and you wanted to spare the oil, so then it's like you went ahead and when you go ahead and you want to save the wick, so therefore I am extinguishing the wick to relight the same wick. So that's knocking demolition with the intent to rebuild in the same place. Therefore, Rabbi Yehuda would say that therefore you'll be in violation of the Shabbat if you plan on sparing the wick. You got that, David? Because I closed the wick, I extinguished the wick for the purpose of relighting that wick because I wanted to spare the wick. But if I wasn't interested in relighting the wick, I was only interested in saving the oil. That's not called breaking down to relight to rebuild in its place. Again, if I extinguish the fire, not because I want to, because I'm interested in saving the wick and relighting it, rebuilding in this place. I'm not interested in this wick. I'm only interested in the oil. I extinguished it because I wanted the oil. It's like knocking down the building, take the material somewhere else. Not rebuilding in this place. Therefore, Rabbi Yehuda says that is not the Torah's violation of extinguishing. Because you were extinguishing not because you wanted to relight in its place in the wick. You extinguished for some other purpose. It's like you wanted to go ahead and save the oil. You don't care if they throw the wick out in the garbage. You're not extinguishing because you want to rebuild, and extinguishing to rebuild in this place.
So, like one cook. So, because I need the cook, I need the oil for the oil itself. There's like I cannot like do it without the oil. So, and I cannot have the oil being good in a way that I need it without the wheat. So maybe they are not a different, they are not a separate body, but one body. So even though if I turn off the wheat, I will need to use if for using the oil, I will be liable because it's still never has a because one with another doesn't work.
But the Gemara is saying, but this is a chidush that the Gemara is making that separation between, based on your intention, is how we look at it. If your intention is to spare the wick, that means your intention is if I want to spare the wick, what does that mean? I want to reuse this wick. It's like I want to rebuild right here. I extinguished the wick and I plan on relighting this wick. I destroyed the building and I'm rebuilding the building. That would be in violation. But if I extinguish the wick because I want to save the oil, we're not going to look at it as it's all one thing. We're going to look at the oil as separately. I'm not interested in the rebuilding of this wick. So therefore, the act of the extinguishing, we're going to look at as a destructive act. It's a fascinating Gemara we're learning, everybody. Very, very in depth. Not simple, but I think we're going to crack it. We're cracking it, right? We're cracking it a little bit, everybody?
It's like go many ways. I have a tree and I go this way, many ways of why I would be that or not that. And also, I mean, there is the opinion of the Cabrera they have a Google like even what it's truly or not tangible or tangible. So many ways.
There's a lot going on. We got to work at it, figure it out. Saf, have a great day.